Well, good evening and welcome to our one and only meeting for the month of June. I'm glad you can join us. We like to begin each meeting with a moment of silence, and we invite you to join us if you would like. Thank you. First off, the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join us, I'll lead us in the pledge. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I think we have a special recognition next, Dr. Thorson.
We do. We want to celebrate a very successful athlete in Oconee County. We were on coffee time with Jimmy Watt this morning, and I was telling him it's kind of a unique situation in that Addison is homeschooled. But in South Carolina, of course, homeschool students can participate with the public schools in athletics, and she's done that for a couple of years. Or is it 2 years? 4, 5, okay. It's been longer than I thought. Okay.
Seventh grade.
Okay, 7th grade. So she is an outstanding athlete, particularly in track and field, where she won 3 state championships this year. And her coach, Brandy Moss, is here, along with Dr. Blackwell, the principal at West Oak. And she had one extremely unique state championship this year in the fact that she was competing in an event that she had not competed in previously. And maybe Coach Moss can share a little bit more about that. I'm not sure. She told me I could call on her. I wouldn't put her on the spot. So we'll maybe let her share a few more, and then you and I have a certificate that we'll give Addison. Addison, come on down front so you can be on the camera. And we've got just a certificate. I know you've got gold medals, and those are a lot more important than this, but we wanted you to know that we just appreciate you and are excited for your accomplishments. So why don't you stand right here between us? We'll let you hold that. Mr. Hamby will tweet something out.
As long as I have permission.
Coach, you want to share anything?
Very good job.
Sure. Addison, like you said, she said earlier, she's been competing for us for 5 years since she was in 7th grade. And she actually now she's up to doing 3 sports for us for West Oak. So she's a really phenomenal athlete, great kid, got a very supportive family. I'm assuming you're talking about the hurdles. She hasn't been doing hurdles that long, but she's a competitor, so she loves to compete and she catches on very quickly. She's a quick learner.
So when was your first hurdle event in a meet?
Beginning of April.
Beginning of April, and then in May she won the state championship. So
Wow. She's good.
less than 2 months, and she goes out and wins the state championship. So I know Dr. Blackwell would love to change that homeschool status. So if y'all want to make her a full-time student at West Oak, that would make him happy and all the coaching staff. But thank you for making Oconee County look good. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the approval of tonight's agenda for June 17th. Anyone have any additions or questions? So without objection, I will approve the agenda. The agenda is approved for June 17th. Public comment, anyone sign up, Michelle? No one wants to talk. Okay, approval of minutes for the May 13th, 2019 work session, May 20th, 2019 regular meeting, and May 31st, 2019 special call board meeting. Did anyone see any errors, anything that needs to be changed on those minutes?
Yes, sir.
If not, without objection, we will approve the minutes. The minutes for May 13th, 20th and 31st are approved. Okay, discussion items, May financial report. Ms. Moore?
Well, you all have a report. I went back through it this morning. I didn't see anything that I thought was out of the ordinary, but I'll be happy to answer questions.
Gloria, these numbers that we see with little minus signs by them,
Yeah, we want to talk about that.
does that mean that we have gone over that much, or is this involved with transfers or whatever?
Is there a particular line that you're asking about?
Well, let's look at number 15, for example. Well, I don't know, is that the right one? It's
Yeah.
minus 154.36%.
Yeah, line
Okay.
15 with refunds.
Occasionally we get refunds from, the biggest one we get is from our workers' comp insurance premiums, because we estimate what our payroll's going to be, and then the next year when we actually know what the payroll is, they will adjust what the premium that we paid the prior year. And that is some of what that is. I always estimate low for the budget, and we obviously have collected much more than I estimated. So that makes us look like the negative in this case is a good
It's a
thing.
good thing.
Since it's revenue,
It's a good thing.
a negative means we got more than what was budgeted.
Okay, well,
There's a bad thing then. Career and technology, purchase services,
What line, Joe?
it's down,
In the expenditures,
yes, it's 5,330% negative. At least it is on my sheet. There she is.
yes. The $63,000, you'll see on the check report, you will see a check for that amount, and that is for the instructor for our fire and safety class at the Career Center. We actually, he is an employee of the county, and we reimburse the county for him.
That's his salary.
That's his salary,
That's
yes.
right, I
That's
saw
what
that
we are
salary.
paying the
Yeah, I
county.
saw that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we do. So,
So we estimated $1,200 initially.
yes.
Okay.
And honestly,
Because we haven't done it that way
we've
before.
Never done that before.
That's the first time we've used a position like that through the county, so this year's estimate will be his salary.
Okay. There's another one. I think it's further down the page. Support services, students, 6,000. I think it's account 6,000. Other objects, 574% negative. Did I read that right?
that's actually.
I'd have to look to see exactly what it is, but we're talking about small dollar amounts.
Scroll up a little bit, I think I saw it.
Yeah, it was support services, students.
Yeah, it'd be down.
So
Okay, there it is.
There she is.
So we budgeted, and we don't have many things in other objects. That's kind of a catch-all.
Uh-huh.
I'd have to look to see exactly what the $4,000 is, but I can do that.
Not a lot of money, it's just a half percentage.
It is,
Right.
exactly.
600 roughly to 4,000, yeah.
Further down the page, I thought we had subcontractors cutting grass.
We do, we
We
have,
have some, and then some we do ourselves.
Right, because we just bought a $74,000 remote.
We bought the one to cut the banks, the steep sloping banks, because you can't put a lawnmower on them. So we had that tested out, and we will cut out contracts, and that'll pay for itself in about 2.5 years with the contracts. Richard will cut out and have one of our guys got trained to run it. We saw the demonstration at Walhalla High on the detention pond.
Yeah, that was neat. They asked me to come look at it the day they were testing it out, and it is literally a remote
It's a little
control
tank.
lawnmower that's on tracks that almost looks like a little miniature bulldozer, and it takes the danger out of cutting really steep banks because you do it with a remote control. You're sitting there, there's a driver with a remote control going up and down those banks, and the amount of money that we have to pay contractors to keep our detention ponds clean, they finance, or they figured it
So
out.
in other
that
words,
the
that's what
return
it's
on-
going to be used for all
Absolutely.
retention
Yes,
And the
ponds.
return on investment was only, what, 2.5, you said 2.5 years to get it paid back, to avoid paying those contracts.
So we redid those contracts, and then that'll pay for. Now, we will have to put one of our guys
We're gonna
to
put somebody
operate it,
on it to
but you do those about 4 times a year versus what you normally do when you're cutting. But you got the big bank behind the football field at Walhalla, you've got the detention pond. So anything that's got more than a 2 foot to 1 foot slope, basically, you know, we may have to use that on. So Richard, when he was talking about us getting this, he had laid out for me the exact amount of contracts we could cut out, and again, it'll pay for itself in about 2.5 years.
Speaking of those retention ponds, is there not a lot of garbage in there, like paper products and things like that from the?
Most of ours are so far away, you know, like on the backside, you have the little pine trees, saplings that
You know,
build
like
up
the
and
water
that kind
from
of
the
stuff.
draining, you know, from.
Most of it's not, most of it's just coming from runoff on the site, it's not coming piped in from anywhere else.
I guess it's possible, though, if somebody dropped a piece of paper in a parking lot, it could go down.
It can flow down
and it
into
could
that.
flow
I
down
just
into
wondered-
But we don't see,
You
we
certainly
don't see a
don't
tremendous
that
amount of
from
that.
The top.
Okay,
I'm good.
we're good.
If you see a cheaper version of those for home lawns, I might
Yeah.
be interested in that.
But the great thing about it is the safety aspect,
Yeah.
because cutting a hill is dangerous, and this,
Well-
now it's just,
Tri-County Tech, that hill,
Yeah.
I would love to see how they do that, because I wouldn't be behind a lawnmower.
Ken
on that.
Capera will tell you that he would like to have a machine like this to do that, because they have to go
course, this is-
weed eat and.
yeah, this is rough cut, it's not a smooth cut, it's just more like a bush hog, I guess you'd say, just keeping it down and not letting trees grow, but it's a pretty neat little machine.
Gee,
I'd like to borrow it about once or twice or something, just to make sure we got a good deal on
We
it.
probably have to report that to the ethics.
We'll let you come watch when we use it one day. So I'll tell you when we're gonna use it and you can come watch.
Okay.
And that purchase did not come from our general fund budget, that was from our capital.
Capital improvement.
Capital improvement, 8. Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
anything else?
Funding flexibility.
Okay. Many of the funds that we get from the state are for a particular purpose, and the state has given us some flexibility to use these, to move these funds from the original funding line into our general fund, as long as we're using them for the same purpose. And so several years ago, we took advantage of that. It makes our accounting much easier. We receive the money into the original state fund, and then we transfer it into the general fund. We pay salaries and other normal operating costs from the general fund. The formative assessments, the very last one, the $52,000, is about half of what we pay for map testing. So all of that, we pay for the map testing from the general fund, and I just transfer this money to cover some of the costs of map testing. So, and we need to have you all approve it and later in the meeting, so that we'll be in compliance with what the state requires.
And that's an annual, we do this every
We
year.
do this every year, yes, we do.
And it just simply makes things easier in her office, it's not. it's
Rather
just-
than trying to figure out which 50 people we want to pay from these funds, we move all of the money to the general fund, and we pay all those people.
It's accounting easier.
Makes it much easier.
Any questions on that? All right, you're popular lady tonight. Meal prices for 2019-20.
We also have to compare every year our price of school lunch. There's a formula that the USDA requires us to use to compare the price of the reimbursement for a free lunch as compared to a paid, what students pay. And when that average number is less than the reimbursement that we get for free lunch, it means we have to go up on our price. Last year, we didn't have to, because there was some, there's an exemption that will let you not have to go up. We don't qualify for that this year, so we need to increase our lunch prices by 10 cents. So elementary will go to $2.20, and secondary will be $2.40 next year.
There's a piece of paper, I think, that was put on your desk, just that explains that, but.
A lot of things in the meal program are completely controlled by the federal government. So we have,
If we take part in the free lunch program, then we're more or less giving the federal government
We play by the
We
rules.
play by their rules, that's right.
Yes, they reimburse us about $3.40 for a free lunch student. And students pay, well, like last year, $2.10 or $2.30. So that's where we are.
Any questions on that? Anything else, Ms. Moore?
That's it.
And those two things, no, I guess not
You don't have to approve
we don't have to approve the meal prices. But the funding flexibility, we are gonna ask you to take action if you're comfortable with that tonight, just because you need to start that process and as soon as July gets here, instead of waiting until the July board meeting to do that.
Mr. Hanley, policy ADC, tobacco-free school district.
Right, and we have 3 policies regarding tobacco-free. We have the school district, the school and staff, and we have used by students. And this is basically at the recommendation of the State School Board Association with keeping up with the times. Now there are the situations with vaping and the jewels and those things that they're using now. So this policy, basically, the changes are the same in all 3 policies, so I won't read them all to you. But it basically is getting us up to speed. You know, we had to update the electronic cigarette before, and now we're doing, with the vaping, what they call alternative nicotine products. So we're making sure that we follow that policy and the laws that are changed at the end that are noted in there. On the legal references at the back, but the biggest one, other than some wording, is just the adding of the vaping into that.
I have a question
Okay.
on the policy. If you'll push down all the way to the bottom where it says tobacco industry marketing or sponsorship, go to the 3rd sentence there, please. In addition, any gear, paraphernalia, clothing, etc. that advertises tobacco use or tobacco products or alternative tobacco products will not be allowed on district grounds or in the possession of students, parents, legal guardians, staff, contractor, other workers, volunteers, visitors, or other members of the public on district property at district-sponsored events. You go to a football game and somebody walks in with a T-shirt advertising Viceroys, what are you gonna do with him?
I'm not gonna do anything with it.
Your policy says they can't do it.
It does.
I believe that these changes came as a result of a state law that changes. We'll need to, I'm not.
Because, yeah,
That's
that-
really gonna be a tight issue right there, so
I
let's figure that one out.
I don't disagree. That's gonna be hard to, if somebody walks in with a racing jacket on that has Winston or
Exactly.
whatever.
Exactly.
Just a little bit more. I want to say 59-1-380 addresses that. We will make sure we research that and have an answer for you before you give that second reading.
Okay,
But I'm not sure we have a choice on that part of this
I think-
policy.
that's just something that caught my
Sure.
eye, and it would be.
It's a good
hard
question.
How do you enforce it? I mean,
hard to
I don't
enforce that.
disagree.
We enforce it if it's state law.
I don't disagree with the policy, but it will be tough for a while, you know. But that's something that if that pans out to be correct, we need to make the public aware of.
That happens sometimes, that we're giving policies to enforce that are tough to enforce. But I'll do a little more checking on that with the
Thank you, Steve.
section 59-1-380. I don't disagree with you at all. If there are no more questions about that, those 3 policies, the next one is something that we've been looking at and talking about as a leadership team, and Dr. Thorsen may step in on this one as well. But there's been some question about staff leave and absences and how we adjusted the policy and people leaving without getting anything. So what happens is if you've got 32 days built up and you're going to leave the school district and go to a different job, you
may not get any kind of compensation for those days. So what we see is, we had a situation at a school where somebody was going to leave and they found out they weren't going to get any compensation for the days. Well, they just started taking the days. So we were without the regular teacher toward the end of school, and we were paying for a sub to go in. So we've looked at what other districts do, and in fact, I saw something on this with the state education group that was doing a lot of the lobbying with the legislature and that on their Facebook page. This topic came up about what schools do to incentivize you keeping your days and turning them in. We have a policy in place for people who were hired before October of 2012, and if you build up days, then we'll pay you your daily rate. If you're over 45, and we'll dedicate some to the state retirement, which will help you in the long run for your service time. But for people who were hired after that date in October, if they don't get above 45, they're not getting anything. So what we looked at was trying to come up with a way to make that fair to everybody, and that would not adversely affect the classroom potentially in a situation where somebody chooses to do that. So we have, the first part is basically the same. We've taken out some of the language with Terry and that. But when you get over to the second page and you talk about the fifth bullet down, those hired prior to October 1, 2012, the red part talks about, upon retirement or separation, the first 45 days in an employee's accumulated leave can either be submitted to the South Carolina retirement system as service credit as allowed, or the employee can be paid at the lower prevailing substitute rate, which is right now $65 a day. So they can choose, if I get hired and I've got 32 days, rather than them saying, well, I'm going to leave 32 days before my time's up, they can choose and put those 32 days toward their retirement and get that extra service credit, or take 32 times 65 as part of their last check with the district, and be compensated for those days that they technically have earned through coming in and not using them throughout the year. You know, you can build up to 90, and then it resets each July 1st. And we currently, if you're over 90 and you've been in the district, which you most likely have to be to get over 90, you get the $65 a day now, and then you start back with your 90, and you add whatever the number is depending on your contract length. And you know, for me, I'll go from 90 to 105, and if I use those 105 or 15 of those, then I don't get anything in July. If I don't, then I get $65 a day for everyone over 90 on my July paycheck.
The one thing I just felt really strongly about is I wanted to be consistent with how we treated leave. And in some of our discussions, we just discovered that there were certain cases when we were just inconsistent. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, there were certain people that were, you know, saying, well, my resignation date's going to be 3 weeks from now, but I'm not coming between now and then, and that was allowed. Just because different supervisors looked at things different ways, and we just wanted to bring clarity to it and make sure that all employees were being given the same advantage, and essentially treating annual leave as this turns annual leave into more of a right than a privilege. I mean, you're more or less earning $65 a day for every annual leave day upon separation from the district. And at retirement, it's pretty standard. Anybody who's in the South Carolina retirement system, you're pretty much going to do the same thing. But upon separation, if someone leaves the district for employment in another, you know, another job, then it was kind of fuzzy where people could be, you know, do it different ways, and we just wanted to be consistent.
And it doesn't put, I mean, one of our, I mean, really very good employee in that, and put them in a bad spot, but they didn't want to just lose the days, but so they ended up making a decision to, you know, put their date at a different time and not come back for a few weeks, and it puts the schools in a tough spot too. So if you go to the third page, it's not highlighted on yours at this time. We caught it after the fact, but if you'll look under procedures regarding absences, there's a sentence in there, if annual sick leave is taken for personal reasons, the request must be made. We're talking about if folks are going to be out for over 3 days and that for something that's not sick leave, then we want them to put that request in writing to the director of HR and not the principal, so we can be consistent on what we're doing. If you have a trip that you're taking and you want to be out for 5 days, some schools have said that's okay, some have said no. If it's once in a lifetime, you know, you can do it. If you're going for your child's college graduation in Maine, you know, that's fine, work it out. But, you know, and then some people get those once in a lifetimes that are yearly. And so that's just a fundamental change there that we want to add to this policy or adjust in this policy and let, at this time, Mr. Leroy, but the director of HR, be involved with that. We talked with the principals about it last Wednesday, and they kind of like it, actually. It takes it off their plate and takes the pressure off them.
But again, brings consistency across the district.
So that part will be updated on the second reading to say that. Other than that, I think that's it. And I know it's a quick turnaround. We can make adjustments, obviously, between first and second reading. That we'll check on what Mr. Herring asked about, and if there's anything you see, you can let us know. But we're trying to get the first reading in today because we only have one meeting this month, one meeting next month, and we need to get them on the books before folks come back in August. Already talking about that. It's just now finished up the last year. So, thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Hadley, okay, action items, approval of funding flexibility. The point and Gloria going over it again. Can I get a motion on approving the funding flexibility form as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the approval of funding flexibility form as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the funding flexibility form? Unanimous. First reading approval, and we will have a second time to make any changes we discussed. I think we can take those first three, even though they're different sections, they're all tobacco related. They all read the same as far as changes go. So let's get a motion on approval of policy ADC, GBED, and JICG, please.
You want just the two or all three?
All three.
Okay, you want to do it or me?
Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation that we approve on first reading policy ADC, tobacco-free school district, policy GBED, tobacco-free school/staff, and policy JICG, tobacco use by students.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve on first reading. All in favor? Okay. And the last one, policy GCC/GDC, staff leave and absences.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve on first reading policy GCC/GDC, staff leave and absences.
Second.
Motion and second to approve policy GCC/GDC. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, that concludes the open session portion of the meeting. We do have an executive session on the agenda for personnel items, employment recommendations and changes, and the superintendent's evaluation contract. And without objection, we will be in executive session. We shall return shortly. Thank you.